This year, I'm going to start, since I sold my house on the lake, I'm going to start try to rock walking around in other places, but I've been since 1968.
Yeah, I'd love to go, but I think Cool.
It's always been.
Okay, and then
Because I've driven in LA almost three ways. All three lanes on your side, totally full, 85 and 90 miles an hour. This far off the road in front of us. And I would just grip. Oh, no, it's going. Okay, here you go.
We're going to go ahead and get started and just forget the formalities that we typically do up front because we have some speakers that have to get out early by 6:30. And I know we've got all kinds of conflicts. Everybody in the world is off to some kind of graduation or going to school and picking up their kids and working with Boy Scouts, and there's all kinds of conflicts. St. John's having something, the Purple Cow's having something, I don't know what else going on. But anyway, hopefully we'll have a few more show up. We have one more member that is supposed to be right here, and hopefully she'll show up here shortly. She assures me we will, but we need to get started. And like I say, hopefully we'll have some more audience members here in a little bit. Otherwise, we maybe had just let these people arm wrestle.
I would pay to see that.
Would you?
how much?
I don't know. Now, Pat he has turned the leaf. He is bicycling and running and lifting weights and doing all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't mess with him myself. Anyway, what we're going to do initially is introduce the moderator, and he will inform everyone of the rules. And I guess the other participant is going to have to wing it because she is going to miss the rules. And we're very fortunate this evening to have that silver-tongued fellow, star of radio, a legend in his own mind, Glenn Gallus.
I'm excited about doing this. I'm just disappointed that we don't have a bigger turnout. It was Thomas Jefferson that said that it's a well-informed citizenry that can best administer their government, and I think that's true even in a debate like this. It's the information that we receive so that we can make an informed decision. So I'm going to be brief. I'm just going to go over the kind of the rules, and probably the reason they have me do this anytime is because I have the loudest voice, and so no one can, but next to Dr. Jack, of course. But in either case, each speaker or panel member has 4 minutes to provide their initial presentation. So I would ask you to get direct, right to the point. Why you're for it, why you're against it. 4 minutes goes quick. That we have red lights over there, or green, yellow, and red light over there. The green light's going to show up when you've got to 3 minutes. The amber light gives you 3.5. And the red light tells you your time up, and then I put your arm on the shoulder, and then then that's it, we're done. But, and then what we'll do is we'll have time for questions and answers, and each person will, if you have a question, we'll take 2 minutes per speaker or panel member, and then 2 minutes for rebuttal. So we hope to move this around, rather quickly, and just please remember, for everybody, the red light goes on, your time's up. Let's move this briefly along. So what we'll do is we'll go, one from the pro, one from the con, one from the pro, one from the con, and then we'll finish up with one for the pro. So, all right. So one from this side, go ahead, come on up, give us your initial presentation. Tell us what you're gonna tell us.
So we got pros and two cons, right? I want to apologize if you can't understand me too well, but Agent Orange is taking over my throat, so. But anyway, I'm not a politician, or I'm not a realtor, and, I'm not even a good speaker, but I'm a concerned citizen. And, I'm not even good at quoting figures, but the thing has been thrown around that we're the seventh poorest city in the United States. And, well, I tell you one thing, though, I wouldn't want to change it with Detroit and Chicago that's ahead of us. So, but I think that the important thing is the quality of life. And we got a great quality of life. I work with the homeless and stuff. And they're in pretty good shape. But anyway, about this changing the government, I find it strange that the people from the county are the ones that bring it up, the change of the government in the city. So I don't know, but anyway, I had a business under both the city manager and the mayor-alderman system. And the mayor-alderman system, at that time, was very much unconcerned about what you thought. As the mayor was in charge, and he ran the show. The first time I ran into that system was when they were going to take down the awning downtown, and I thought that was really good, and it helped the business downtown because people would walk under the awning during rain and sunshine, or when it snowed. They used that awning and they were in front of the stores. So they were going to take the awning down, and so I went up there to the board meeting, and I was going to present my case, and the mayor looked out and says, "Mr. Lewin, the awning is coming down. Next." And that's about the way it was. It didn't make any difference what you thought or anybody else. What the mayor wanted, that was done. The mayor under that system has a veto power. So no matter what the aldermen decide to do, the mayor vetoes it. And the bad part about that is it just invites corruption. Because if there's one place in town, like, well, I'm thinking about Oklahoma or something like this, that once certain thing's done, all you gotta do is pay the mayor $50,000 and, well, you got whatever you wanted. And we saw that in those days, because the city was doing everything they could to keep our industry, like Timex had to leave and everything else. And there were some country and Western stars that wanted to open a show here in Hot Springs, such as Dolly Parton. But the thing is, the city made it so impossible for people to operate here that nothing was ever done. And the thing is that we have to have a city or government that is responsible to the people. And what we have right now is getting better every month. And so I'm through. I put it back away. So anyway.
Thanks, Dan. That's why I said, like I said 4 minutes ago, really quick, watch your lights, pay attention to your time. John, you want to go next?
Basically, I'm for changing the form of government to a mayor and alderman system. And the reason for that is that that is the form of government that is outlined in our constitutions. The form of government that we currently have was brought about by the progressive movement, and basically they got tired of trying to amend the Constitution, so they just said it's irrelevant and went on to do whatever they wanted to do. And their whole idea was that they would have a much more efficient government if you combined your legislature and your executive, and preferably the judicial, all into one unified body that would take care that the leadership of the educated and appointed were properly dealt with in terms of the law. Now, that's not exactly the way our country was set up under the Constitution. And under the Constitution, we wanted to have tension between the legislature and the executive and the judiciary, that they would be in the form of checks against each other instead of efficiency, because they were supposed to be limited in what they did. It was to make sure that they were not taking too much power for themselves, that they were keeping the people in the forefront and not the politicians and the special interests. As I said in a letter recently that, I think I left it over there. James Madison's thoughts about the role of government and how to control government. He said, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place oblige it to control itself. A dependence on the people is no doubt the primary control on the government, but experience has taught mankind the necessity of auxiliary precautions, namely checks and balances. So that is my primary reason for objecting to the current form of government. My friend, Mr. Lewin, who has said that, and many of the letter writers who were supporting the current regime talked about how bad it was in the bad old days, how there was so much corruption, and all of these things have to be straightened out. It's, I believe it was the Arkansas Times in an article in 2007 said, the city manager form of government in Arkansas is starting to look like an idea whose time has come and gone. And they go on to say that in the mid-1950s was when people wanted professionalism, that that's where the big push for having professionals run the show. I said, am I ready to go? All right. I will finish with, most of these people were well-to-do business types, unelected leaders of their communities, but leaders nonetheless. And things haven't changed too much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
You guys are doing good. You know, all I have to do is, touch him on the shoulder and he's like, I'm done. I like that.
What framed you? My name is Rick Ramey. I'm a former city director, and I didn't realize that I was going to be up here until I got about halfway down the aisle, and Bob tapped me and asked me if I would speak. So I will. I think a lot of this changing back to the mayoral form of government has come through the opposition for the ETJ. I don't think that's a reason to change the government, because I don't think a strong mayor could do that either. But in my time on the board, the directors spend hours and hours every week. I probably spent 20 to 25 hours a week responding to phone calls, citizen complaints, citizen requests, going to meetings, and you know, everyone talks about kickbacks. I'm still looking for that kickback. I never got one. But I know in the strong mayor, I'm from Pine Bluff, and just in recent times, a mayor was elected that immediately abolished the Civil Service Commission, took control of the police and fire department. The first thing he did was fire the police chief and hire his girlfriend from Atlanta to take over as police chief. Well, there was a new mayor elected recently, and she was sworn in at 10 a.m., and at 10:10 she fired the police chief. And so they're trying to bring the city back. I don't want to see us go through that. I don't know who, if we became a strong mayor city, who the mayor would be. I know that I worked under two city managers, Kent Meyer and Lance Hudnall, and I promise you that they did everything they could for the betterment of the city. And I can tell you also that every board member that I worked with, and two are sitting right here, they loved the city, and they did everything they could to support the city and to make sure that we were doing the best thing we could. Now, the thing about the city manager form of government, for any ordinance or resolution to pass, it takes the consensus of 4 people. And with a strong mayor government, a mayor can push through what he or she wants. So I just think that we're much better off when we have 7 volunteers who really want to go in there and serve with no pay and give their time, effort, and money to support and represent people of their district. I was in District 5, and we made several improvements out there during my term, and it had to be agreed on by 4 people. So the city directors, they have a district, but I promise you that they are all for everything in the city. Now, one of the things that I wouldn't want to see with a strong mayor is our department heads. We have a fine group of department heads that are dedicated, and they're willing to do anything. Just look at the last storm we had and how quickly everything was cleaned up, and that's a lot of work. And these city employees went above and beyond the call of duty for this city. And I think that their attitude is the attitude of the department heads, the directors, and the city manager. So I'm all for the city manager form of government. Thank you.
That's it, it's great.
Clay Herrmann, and I'm for the proposed change to the aldermanic form of city government. I want to say thank you to Rick for being willing to come before a group where both sides have representation and to put yourself forth that way. It's been hard to get people from your side to do that. Very frustrating. You're probably frustrated, maybe all of you are here, with the low expectation of voter turnout for this important election, that so few people are going to make a decision that's going to affect the city in a very large way if it succeeds. And the status quo will pretty much remain if it fails. But it's just going to be a few people, apparently, that make that decision. I went and got the stats from the Election Commission. On Tuesday, there were 473 votes cast in the first day of early voting. On Wednesday, 330 votes. And on Thursday, as of 3:40 p.m., there were 243 votes cast for a total of 1,046 votes cast so far as of 3:40 today. That is about 4.5%, if I calculate correctly, of the eligible voters in the city. I think 23,000 something eligible voters in the city if someone else can confirm that number. The city clerk was supposed to be here. He had accepted, subject to the city manager allowing him to come. And the city manager at the rally the other night said he was welcome to come. But then afterward changed his mind and said, well, I don't really want you to come reportedly. And anyway, he didn't show. But fortunately, because of you, Rick, we were able to have a full slate on both sides, and I sure appreciate that. And I hope, by the way, if there's any opportunity between now and Monday, if anyone has a group, and if you guys are willing to participate again in some public forum that might be more heavily attended, I think probably everybody on this side would sure be willing, if you invited us to go to some event, to have both sides and to have a public forum and help get a crowd to come out to vote, because how sad that so few are participating in the process. The clerk, if he were under the old form of government, if Lance was a elected city clerk, he wouldn't have to get the city manager's permission to come and speak to the public. That would be an improvement that you could anticipate that's relevant right now to what we're doing here. The treasurer of the city wouldn't have to. The accountability under the aldermanic form of government is directly to the voters. It's not to the board of directors. It's not to the city manager. It's directly to the voters. They're who hires them, and that's who can fire them. The city attorney also, the same thing. Currently, the city attorney, you think, well, the city attorney, I guess he serves the city, the citizens of Hot Springs. He's hired by the board of directors. His client is the board of directors. His legal fiduciary duties as an attorney is to the board of directors. And in the drama that played out with this petition effort that happened to have this election, you might wonder why he did some of the things he did, because the city board of directors wanted him to stop this. But we're having the election anyway, and we'll see how it turns out. I'll yield the balance of my time to Director Maruther.
I was waiting for the Pat and then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was yellow.
No, okay.
Okay.
I'm Pat McCabe. I'm the current city director for District 4. I don't think I've ever talked for 4 minutes straight at a city board meeting, so I may not even get to the amber light. But I think in this day and time, I've always reflect on a individual's comment. A friend of mine always said, Pat, you need to do what you do best and let others do what they do best. You know, things are just too complicated today, and this even for little things around the house. You know, I always end up doing it twice. You know, one when I mess it up, and then I have to bring a professional in to undo what I messed up, and then have it and pay more than I would have paid had somebody done it right the first time. And I think that's very similar to running a city. A city's very complicated. It's not something that everybody can do. I mean, look around the room. I know there are some egos in the room, and but do we really have someone in this room that can run the city? You know, I mean, truly. I mean, we're talking about people who go to school and get a master's degree in public administration. And they graduate from high school, they go get an undergraduate degree in political science or economics or public administration, and then they go right off to graduate school and get a master's degree. Some may go get a doctorate. They're trained, they live and breathe this stuff. You know, I talked to my department heads the other day at the hospital. I says, I don't know what you don't know. And if I don't know that, I can't protect the organization. You know, there's tons of regulations out there. And for somebody, even myself, to say I want to be the mayor in a mayor-alderman form of government, even though I think I'm pretty good at what I do, this is a whole nother animal. This is something that you could drive right off the cliff and not even know it. And that's why we need to have people who are seasoned. You know, a person coming right out of grad school with a master's in public administration is not going to get a job like this. You have got to have many years under your belt to get to this size of an organization, a $95 million organization. And we as citizens, you know, need to hold that individual accountable and hold the board accountable to ensure that they have checks and balances on that that, because we can't be blinders. Even though a person has an education, that doesn't mean they can't mess up. So we still have to have our checks and balances, and that's what the mayor and the 6 directors provide in a city management form of government. The learning curve is just too big. It could be too costly under the mayor alderman form of government. I do agree with Dan, and I think Rick took some of my thunder too, pointing to the Pine Bluff. You know, if I wanted something that Lloyd wanted, but, you know, an aldermanic, I may just try to influence the elected representative and really pad their re-election campaign so I can get it, knowing that limited resources and Lloyd didn't get it. I think the the city manager form of government takes that out. It levels that playing field so that if I make a request and Lloyd makes a request, those are looked at as equal and a plan is put out. They're both legitimate. Let's get it done. Rather than having one person who just happened to be able to influence because they have deep pockets versus somebody else who has an equal claim to that item, and yet they just can't buy the influence. So with that, I'm all in favor of the city manager form of government. I think we've come a long way. It is responsive. I think in many respects it's much more responsive than the alderman. It eliminates the politics and just gets right down to helping people. Thank you.
Push that 4 minutes, though. You notice that?
I did, I got too much intro.
I respect it.
Good evening, Peggy Thurman, Peggy Ruth, or Peggy. Okay, first of all, we've got an emergency. There's a loss of water. There are several things that are going awry, and the CEO of the city doesn't respond. What do? Do you protest? We're running out of money. You hold up signs, you write letters to the editor, they're ignored. That's what's been happening, and everyone knows it. There was a rally held, I believe, on Monday, on the 6th, and I wasn't able to go. But I'm sure I wouldn't have been welcomed because they didn't want debate. They're avoiding debate because it's very clear. If you want to remove an unresponsive CEO, whether it be a mayor or a city manager, in the city manager form of government, your future is in the $97 million budget is in the hands of 4 people. And even if you remove those 4 people, if the social organizations of this city fund the new people's election, you're in the same boat. You're in the same city manager. We had that for years, and I worked under them as the neighborhoods were destroyed. They were destroyed through what's called benign neglect and passive waste. Benign neglect means you do nothing. Passive waste means you sell them down the river. And they did, and I've got the documentation. They've just pulled the plug on public input. And people were vocal. So what happened? Nothing. If you have a mayor, and I grew up under a mayor, I thought he was the president of the United States. It was Richard J. Daley. And I didn't like that form of government, but he pleased the people. That's how he stayed in office. He stayed in office because he got the job done. When I ran for office, that was my slogan. And Rick and Pat, they know that I do my homework. And Pat, I helped him get water. And after he got water and years went by, he's got part of his property in the county. The last census, the county gained 9.1% of an increase. The city, the progressive city, lost 1.4% of its population. There's an exodus. People come here for events, and then they leave and they go home. They go to the county. They go to a gated community. They go where they perceive it to be safe. What happened? The money was put where the city manager wanted to place it. There was a lot of influence. Mr. Rick, said there are no kickbacks. I've never been offered one. However, there are benefits. This is a job with benefits. You can get things rezoned. You can buy it cheap, have it rezoned commercial, sell it for a lot, connect the properties. There's a lot of things you can do.
Get a free dinner.
Well, these people do serve for no pay. So feeding them while they're working 8 hours, it's not. And getting back to city employees, they're excellent. This is not about city employees. This is definitely not about Mr. David Watkins, Wilkins. Not at all. In fact, I would hope that if he were, if they changed the form of government, which I predict they will not, that he would be hired as city administrator. If we had him years ago, we wouldn't be in this mess. We need him. They've pulled the plug on public's input. They say we're going backwards. Are they saying the entire state is going backwards? How many cities have this form of government? I used to believe that it's the people that occupy the seats that make a difference, but apparently the ones that occupy the seats they've got control over it. This is an expensive campaign brochure that I received. I've never seen a local campaign. Anyone. Have you, Glenn?
No.
Very expensive. The chamber and 50 for the future paid for it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, and you can see there's passion on both sides of the debate, and so now it's time for questions and answers. And so the only thing I would ask you, and you know, we don't have that big of a crowd, as you know, but keep the question the main body of your time so that they have the time to answer it. In other words, state your case and let them answer it. So all the way in the back, yes.
2 questions. The first one's really easy. John, I didn't catch your last name.
McGregor.
McGregor.
M.A.C.
M.A.C. Thank you. The second question, also for you. You mentioned quite a bit during your discussion about the change of check and balances. We moved to a mayoral system. Can you explain to me in detail how checks and balances would change from what we have currently? Very, very detailed.
Okay, currently,
Do you want us to, so that we can hear John as well?
currently, basically, you have no check and balance in the sense that it only takes 4 people to approve something that is put up from the business office. If you have a mayoral system, the mayor is the chief executive. He's like the president. He can propose things. The aldermen can decide whether they're going to vote for them or not. If they present an ordinance or a budget to the mayor can veto it. They can override the veto with a 2/3 vote. So you have the same kind of controls that were built into our federal government and our state government, which, by the way, our county, state, and federal government are significantly more complicated than our city government, but they don't work on a city manager basis. Basically, that is where your checks and balances are gonna hold, in that you truly have your 12 different people representing their districts. You have a mayor who is representing all of the people and is elected by all the people and answers to all the people. The mayor right now is just 1 of 7 votes. So the fact that the mayor is elected by everybody, it's like having a councilman at large. You don't really truly have an executive who is running the show and a legislature who are passing the laws. And then that they have an interplay with each other and they're represented by different interests throughout the city and with an executive who represents all of the city.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to talk about that? Okay.
You know, as far as accountability goes, we can look a lot further than this. We can look at a president that won't enforce the laws on the border, a president that makes a phone call to a basketball player that proclaims he's gay and doesn't contact the men and women that are fighting and dying for us. You know, we have the checks and balance of 50 senators and 435 representatives. They can't get together. You know, I know that we had conflicts when I was on the board, but I guarantee you there was lively discussion, but we did what was in the best interest of the city. Now, the city manager can't veto the board of directors. A mayor can veto the decisions. There are 12 aldermen, and like John said, it would take 2/3 of them to rescind his veto. That's a long process as far as I'm concerned. But as far as checks and balances go, I really think that the city manager form of government has more checks and balance than some mayor, and I can give you other examples of an ice storm in Pine Bluff where they received some FEMA money, but when it was time to pay the contractors, they didn't have any money. And I know where it went. So, you know, checks and balances. Peggy, did you ever sign a check?
For what?
A city check to pay for something that's a city expense?
Well, with my vote, yes.
Oh, did you ever sign one, Pat?
No.
I never signed a check. You're gonna have one person that can make decisions on his whim, not on the consensus of 7 people. So, I don't see that the checks and balance is valid for the mayoral form of government.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes for anybody? Okay.
Okay, checks and balances. If the CEO of the city, whether it be the mayor or the city manager, does not exercise or execute the wishes of the people, they will, under the mayor alderman, they are removed by a vote. The city manager, again, will remain there. You'd have to either recall or vote out 4 of the people that are there and hope they will remove that city manager. And that didn't happen, and we did have things happen. The comment was brought up about professionalism. Today, first of all, when you're a CEO, you have to delegate. You don't have to be an accountant to run or administer a business. Being a good delegator is how you run a business. You find people that are experts, professionals, to execute different duties. You don't have to be in water and sewer. You find good people who run the departments. And Kent Myers did do a good job on that. But you delegate and you Google. This is a different world. I mean, you're talking about the old world. The rest of Arkansas seems to be functioning pretty well. And that rally that they had, they're desperate. They are scared to death because if they lose this election, they lose their control over the people they've got in place. And I'm not talking about Mr. David Watkins. I'm talking about the people they feel confident will make the right vote for what they want. Because there will be a direct action if they go to the other form of government. You don't like what they do, you vote them out. You cannot do that now. Thank you.
All right, we have time for another question. So who's up next? Wait.
I'd like to ask Jock, I think that the state sets the law on salaries, like for directors, and I guess, for aldermen, and then it's, I think it's non-paid, for the directors. Now, the people who want to keep the current form of government have tried to say that how expensive it would be if we did go back to the mayoral alderman form and saying, well, we'd have to pay the alderman, you know, a big salary and everything. My question would be, even though they would have to be paid apparently, there's nothing that says how much they would have to be paid, is there? I mean, could it be just $50 a month for expenses or something like that?
Pretty much.
Yeah, or $1 or whatever, you know.
Also, if I may. A report that was prepared by a man named Terry Waterfield for the University of North Carolina about the relative merits and costs of the council manager system and the mayor council system, and then a hybrid that has basically a business manager that runs the city under a mayor, okay? The cost differential between the council manager and the mayoral council is almost negligible. It's a matter of $1,000 or so on a multi-million-dollar budget. There's a little bit more emphasis on one side or another in terms of which did one. In the case of a mayor council, there was more emphasis on the police department. There was more emphasis on the fire department when it came to the council manager. But basically, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in terms of what it cost to run the various things. And what is paid is up to the voters, basically, in determining the salary rates.
Response from the center, everybody?
I'm not going to dispute, I don't have any information as to the cost effectiveness of one form versus the other. I will indicate, though, that if this were to go to an automatic form of government, those individuals who are elected would hold, like in their first meeting, and propose an ordinance as to what they would be paid. I think that's how it would go. I may be wrong on that, but whether they're paid $1, $50, or $1,000, that's not the issue. The issue is going to really come down to, you know, which form provides the most professional leadership. You have a city attorney. We have a very fine city attorney. He won a big suit for us at the Supreme Court. You know, do we want? Not all lawyers are the same. You know, if one lawyer gets one more vote than somebody else, and he's not having a good day or he's not as seasoned, that's going to cost the city. You know, we don't want to, you know, play lightly on these other positions of city clerk and city treasurer. You know, the fact that, oh yeah, we can all vote them out if they do wrong. Well, you know, you might be in quicksand by the time you figure that out. So, you know, it's more than just the mayor and the alderman. It's these other positions as well that come along and are then having to be elected. So, you know, I think the city manager has put together a good team. He's promoted Bill Burrows. He's very responsive. I use Bill all the time because he is quick and Johnny on the spot to get things done, and he's worked very well with the citizenry. I've gone out with Bill and worked with some neighborhoods on some water and sewer issues, and it's fantastic. And David's putting together the leadership team that he needs to be effective, and we're supporting that. So, thank you.
John.
I believe that our fair city is the only one in central Arkansas that has a negative population growth of 1.4% between 2000 and 2011. Let's see, Benton was 40% increase, Bryant 71%, Cabot 56%, East End 24%, et cetera, et cetera. The smallest one was Little Rock with 5.9%. And they also have a a non-mayoral system. We are rated number 7 in lowest or poorest cities by the 24/7 Wall Street group in their analysis of all the cities. What they say is the median income in Hot Spring residents was $3,137 less in 2011 than it was in 2010. One of the things that they point out is that one of the reasons for that is that we have such a high rate of retail employment as opposed to other forms of employment in manufacturing and in other areas of that nature. But to be ranked number 7 as the poorest city in the country, there's only 6 other cities that are poorer than we are. I don't think that that's a sterling recommendation for the last 25 years of government control by a board of directors and a city manager, even if they did a good job.
Okay, we have time for another question? Sir?
Addressing both sides of this issue here, I don't think it's so much whether somebody on this side or anybody thinks that somebody's on the tape or doing it for their own political hubris or whatever on that end it's going on. It'll always go on no matter what form of government, no matter how subtle, sublime, or minor it may be. It exists and it'll always be there. Deal with it. It'll never change. It'll only get worse. From city government to national governments to world government. As long as somebody has their thumb on something, it takes great deal of discipline and honesty to control that within yourself. It's overwhelming. Give somebody an inch and they will consider taking another fraction of something. Now, my point is this. I don't think it's so much how the city is run. A change is needed. I've been here 5 years. My opinion is 7 years. My opinion is this. I don't think there's enough people living in this city that have real skin in the game. And by that, I mean property ownership. People that take pride in owning their property and want to keep their property. You have too many deadbeat landlords. You have too many deadbeat people that don't have jobs. You have people that don't have skin in the game. There is a large underlying value. There is more emphasis put on the rights of dogs than there are people. You have an animal control guy that is doing the best he can. He knows what the deal is, but he can't do his job. He doesn't have the resources. Ever since I've got here, the argument has been about the police and the fire not being able to communicate and having an outdated communication system. Nothing has been done on that line yet, and yet you still have, as was pointed out by, I think it was Mr. McGregor here, this guy that wants to build a freaking ball field out there, thinking that he's going to attract all kinds of revenue out there. Nobody still is willing to address the ongoing and ever-increasing water problem we're going to have, let alone how is he going to, the water, the sewer, that's out of control. I think what we have in this city, the services are doing very fine and well, but we don't have any, I don't see any vision in this town. I don't see, no matter who it is who's going to run the city, I don't see any vision. They're still relying on this dead, dying idea that tourism is going to float this city. It isn't.
So what would be the question you
I
want
don't
to
know.
answer?
I'm saying, who's going to provide the vision?
I tell you what.
When are they going to come to the realization, whoever it is, that tourism is out the window. It really is.
Okay.
There's not enough going on to support a bunch of people that come to this town and walk around downtown with an ice cream cone in their hand, walking families 6 wide deep on the sidewalk, looking for something to do and thinking they're really having a great time. There's
Okay, we'll
nothing
let,
to
this
do.
time, you guys will address it first, and then Peggy, you'll address it. Okay, that's how we'll do it. So, who wants to address that?
What is the actual question here?
Who has the vision
It
to
was
take
a
this
strong
city
statement.
where
I'm
it
sorry, I
needs to
can't hear
go
what person.
and support itself? That's
The question was, who has the vision, okay, to help the city support itself in whatever direction it is going?
to the direction that it needs to go. Tourism is out the window.
Okay, Rick?
I disagree with you respectfully, sir. You know, you look at the receipts from Oakland this year and the money that the city is getting from that. You look at the bike rallies, which unfortunately was a bad weekend for that. You look at the receipts for the hotels and the restaurants. We depend on tourism, sir. The largest employer is St. Joseph's Hospital.
What I'm saying is, you've got to quit depending on tourism. You've got to
And
get
what-
something else going on.
Like what?
Industry.
Space shuttles or?
Whatever, manufacturing doohickeys.
Well, we have solved, or one of those problems has been solved, that we hopefully have someone that's in place that's going to try to bring those people
Hope and
in.
change.
Yeah, we have to be hopeful, sir. I mean, you know, we have to hope for the best. Also, we were talking about the salaries. I want to get back to that for the mayor and aldermen. This is a fact, and again, I bring up Pine Bluff, but in Pine Bluff, in the county, in Jefferson County there, they have to serve 10 years. At 10 years, they can draw retirement. Now, that retirement can be paid in one lump sum. I know one mayor that got $1.5 million. We don't have the money to pay that. You know, I know an alderman that got $255,000 after serving. So there are a lot of things to contend with. The insurance, again, a retirement plan, and we have a retirement plan now for the fire department that was started by the good old boys, and the city's paying dearly for that now. And we don't know of a way to get out of it. So I hope that answers your non-question.
You know, you keep on bringing up Pine Bluff. Tell me what was ever so successful about Pine Bluff?
You say industry, the Cotton Belt Railroad, Arkansas Power and Light Company, International Paper Mill.
Are they still there?
AP&L moved out, the Cotton Belt moved out. International Paper Mill is barely hanging on
That's right.
through a mayoral form of government.
Okay, so,
The point is that Pine Bluff is not.
let them address this. So we came to hear them speak,
That's a
so.
dying city.
Okay, direct response to your question. Both sides are going to be corrupt or could be corrupt. The difference is, with the city manager form of government, you can't remove the city manager. You can maybe prosecute him if he does something illegal, criminal. But again, with the mayor alderman, you can vote him out. Okay, one of the problems that we're having is we educate our children, and then they have to leave here. I heard on the radio something about we don't want smokestacks. We can't get them if we want them. I mean, everybody's afraid of smokestacks. No, we don't have to worry about it. We can't keep commerce here. What was the other? About it being responsive. Again, responsive means you can just say they're not doing a good job, and there's more of us than these organizations. That's why they had the rally. They need our vote now. After Tuesday, they do not need your vote to pull the plug on the camera. They don't need your vote to approve the budget. They don't need you after Tuesday. And there's nothing you can do. You can vote in different city directors and hope and pray that they are going to be independent, do their homework, and can stand on their own and take a stand. And with the mayor-alderman form of government, it's different. You get to vote in 12 people and a mayor. And the mayor does have veto power, but they can be overturned. And again, if the quorum court can be paid, why couldn't the city directors be paid? I mean, we've got the county being paid, everybody's moving out to the county, or trying to, or they move out there and then they annex to come in for our services. It's very clear cut. I mean, you can't vote out the CEO now. And it's easier to control 7 people than it is 12. Thank you.
Did you want to?
Just relating to the vision, you know, some of the problems that we face are very challenging problems of water and sewer. We do have an approach on that, and working through the Corps of Engineers, you know, we have water everywhere now to drink, you know, all the Lake Hamilton is controlled by Entergy, Lake DeGray by the Corps of Engineers, Lake Washita by the Corps of Engineers. They all have their rules to go by, and we have to work through that. So thank goodness, you know, David Watkins, our city manager, has taken a different approach than the prior city management, and we're working through all of those. And so we are moving forward. The city of Hot Springs, and along with other communities around the area, have given the Corps of Engineers several $100,000 to conduct a study so that we can see if we can draw water out of Lake Washita. But we're also working on the Lake DeGray as an option. So that is an option. As far as, you know, our population, you know, we haven't pursued an aggressive annexation policy or program. We have natural barriers, obviously Lake Hamilton, and the person on the east side versus the person on the west side of the lake, or the north or the south, whatever direction you're looking. You know, there's that water barrier there. You city of Conway, you know, they don't extend their water and sewer until the person that development wants to annex. You know, we've extended it from years gone by. So and that's been a policy, and that's out there. So, you know, if you have water and sewer, you know, that's your primary need for city services. Why would you want to annex? So there are some things there that are historical that has caused the city to be both historical and geographic, that's caused the city to be boxed in a little bit. But those are just a couple of points. You know, I think we do have good vision. We know what the issues are. We're moving forward on them.
Okay, well, here's what we're gonna do, because we're gonna really quickly run out of time, and I don't, so what we'll do is, let's give everybody two minutes. Let's give everybody 2 minutes to kind of wrap up, say what you're gonna say, so that we can express, because there's one more point that we've got a PowerPoint presentation that has to be seen. And so, everybody gets 2 minutes, so we'll start with you, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
I want to directly respond to Mr. Director Pat McCabe's comment about we're working on the water. They are not working on the water. The federal government came in and said, you either fix the problem or we're going to shut you down. And Good Government and some other organizations are very aware of that. We've had meetings at the Civic Center. And so they're not working on the water because, you know, they're just working on the water. It was neglect by a prior administration, and we did things, and the federal government was going to shut the city down, and we're going to continue going in the direction we are if we continue with this form of government, because we have no recourse at all. Just hope for the best when you vote. That's all you can do. The other one, you will have control over who runs the city. And again, I would hope that Mr. David Watkins would be the person who runs the city. Thank you.
All right, next up is Dan, and what we'll do is also, some people have to get out of here, so they'll leave, but the rest of them have agreed to stay after the PowerPoint to answer more questions if you have them. Right, Dan?
Okay, talking about corruption that can creep in, you got a city manager, he is looking out for a resume, and he wouldn't be bought off easy, I can tell you that. And then you have your board of directors and your mayor that meet in meetings and form what the agenda is going to be. And then they bring it up to the public. and we get a chance to speak on it if we want to. On a mayor, aldermans, you don't have any accountability. You get to that mayor, and you've got it. I mean, the aldermen are immaterial. So that's a corruption part of it. Now, a vision for the future. This is a tourist town, but you know, if you get rid of Oak Lawn and put a great big huge fat farm out there, make a big hotel, you got the spring water, you can charge these people $2,000 a day to come and be mistreated to lose weight. You got an infield there that you can have as a park. You got a racetrack on there that you can use as a jogging track. Man, I mean, you get rid of Oak Lawn and put a good business in there, and this city is going to thrive. Now, as far as going losing population, I want to know how much good the old system did. You know, we are still trying to overcome that system there. And, you know, if you got a good director, which I had, I don't have it anymore, but Peggy used to be my director. When I said that we needed something done, it was done. Now, when you got a mayor alderman, forget it. So, bury yourself if you want to, but, or you can live it up.
Josh?
Basically, the professionalism of the form that we currently have is part of the process that has been developed under the progressive system. And it's known in a larger scale as the administrative state. And what you have then are a bunch of professional people who are unelected, who are making all of the life and death decisions for the people that are within their purvey. And that is not the way we are supposed to run our governments. We're supposed to be self-governing and working through people who have limits on their power, not unlimited power. And the problem that you have with corruption, the more power that you give to people who are not elected or who have a position that is protected by special interests, the more you're going to have corruption. It can be in any form of government, but you can have more of it wherever the power is the greatest, that's where the corruption will be the greatest. And it's just an inevitable fact that has existed throughout history. And if anybody can tell me of a place where ultimate power didn't corrupt, I'd love to hear about it.
Pat?
Yeah, just again, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm one of the individuals asked to leave right after these comments, but I appreciate your interest. I do believe that the city management form of government provides us the most professional team that we can hope for in a mayor alderman form of government. You know, whoever gets that one vote more than the next guy becomes your mayor, becomes your city attorney, becomes your city clerk, becomes your city treasurer, may have absolutely no experience at all. Certainly, I'm a great believer in David Watkins and those who have that form of education. This is not an experiment. Every time we try to experiment with things, things just go awry. So, you know, we see that time and time again in political office. You know, the beauty of being down here at the local level is that we can bring on a professional city manager who has that education and formal experience to guide the board, but also to allow the city citizens to be represented by a mayor and 6 directors who hold that city manager accountable. And we have held city managers accountable. If they don't get the job done, they're moved out. Now, are there different opinions as to what we believe at times? Yeah, that's 7 directors, or one holds the title as mayor. Yeah, we're not always going to see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, you know, a decision is made and we move on. So I've wholly endorsed the city management form of government, and I certainly hope that the voters do as well, you know, between now and the end of the day on Tuesday, the 14th. The city of Hot Springs is not under any review on our water from a federal agency. Obviously, any water source has to receive the permit and the permission, the permit from the health department, and that's what the issue was a few years ago, is they didn't like the location that we were going to draw the water from. So, you know, we started afresh. Thank you, and have a great day, and be careful on your way home. Roads look a little slick. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pat, for coming. Appreciate it. Approximately 500 cities and towns in the state of Arkansas. Approximately 500 cities and towns in the state of Arkansas. And we currently have 4 cities. If you count Little Rock, half a city. So 4.5 because they have a strange hybrid system where it's a 2-headed monster with a city manager with a big salary and a mayor with a big salary. But think what a tiny percentage that is of the cities that have decided to hang on to this experiment that's a departure from the American way of government called the city manager form of government. Going back is not the experiment. That's our heritage. That's our foundation. It's returning to the original. What we have now is an experiment started in the 1950s in Arkansas that about 15 cities tried. And about 2/3 of them have decided, no, that wasn't so smart after all, let's go back. Hot Springs is one of 4 cities now, Arkadelphia, Hope, Hot Springs, and Texarkana, that are hanging on to this declining vestige of maybe a well-intentioned but an unfortunate experiment that is a departure from the idea that you people are not necessarily too stupid to vote for the person that will be the chief executive of your city. You're not necessarily that stupid. And the Hot Springs, or Safe Hot Springs folks are telling you that Hot Springs is a business. It's a $97 million approximately business, and you'd be stupid to entrust the management of a business of that size to people that you just pick and you don't know what their credentials are, and you might just vote for some idiot. We see that happen in our political system in America, don't we? On the state level, on the national level, county level, and yet that's America. And if you're stupid enough to elect a stupid person to run the stupid government, then I guess you got what you deserve. But let's not do that. Let's rise from that and become an informed electorate, and let's regain our heritage of civic responsibility and return to a form of government that goes back to that. And I have a red light, so thank you.
Let's give everyone a hand for.
I have last comments. What if we have say the salary's going to be $1 a month, $1,000 a month. What if we have only all stupid people running for mayor? Do we select the less stupid of the stupid? So that's our problem. We have a professional city manager now that is educating this business. So I'm going to keep that. And sir, you made my point a while ago about, I keep mentioning Pine Bluff, and you said Pine Bluff is drying up. You're correct. I'm from Pine Bluff. About 7 or 8 years ago, a gentleman wanted to turn a hotel into an assisted living facility. Met with a couple aldermen. The aldermen wanted to meet them at the Holiday Inn at the airport in Little Rock. So they went up there and talked to this gentleman and a couple other gentlemen with him. They offered them $50,000. They gave them the cash. Well, guess what? The 2 men that were with him were FBI, had cameras all over the place. These 2 city aldermen spent time in federal prison. Fact. I don't remember anything like that happening here. So please keep our government professional by having a professional manager of our city. I think our mayor is doing a great job. You see her a lot of places. She, again, they say that the mayor's job is cutting ribbons and kissing babies. Well, she's doing a good job doing that, and runs the meetings real well. And also, I think we have very good board of directors right now. They're doing a good job, and they're looking out for you. I promise you that. So thank you, and please vote against. Thanks.
I really feel sorry for the people of Pine Bluff, but evidently they got their act together and threw the crooks in jail. It doesn't matter what the form of government are, you can have crooks in any form of government. And as I said before, the more control and of the lives of the people are run by the politicians and the bureaucrats, the more you're going to find that there are special interests in one form or another that are pressuring, pushing, buying, whatever it takes to get what they want done and not what the people need to have done.
Okay, I think we owe a debt of thanks to all of these fine folks. A very stellar panel, a current city director, 2 former city directors, 2 principal brokers, an author, and I guess, Jock, you're pretty much an author too. I see quite a few of your letters. But anyway, I think we owe all of them a big hand. And we are going to have some more questions and answers from those folks right after I give you, I think it will be an eye-opening little PowerPoint. I'm going to move this lectern out of the way so you can see.
Excuse me? The city of Hot Springs. Yes, sir.
This may or may not work.
There you go.
I should say before I start on this PowerPoint that I think we probably have the best city manager, best police chief that we've had in many, many years. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And, okay, we have one, but anyway, what I'm really saying is I don't have a position, one way or the other. And even if I did, it wouldn't matter because I don't live in the city. But it disturbs me somewhat when we hear advertising and information that's not 100% correct. So in doing some research and visiting with a couple of attorneys, including the city attorney, I came up with the information I present to you here. And that is the primary differences in the 2 forms. The city manager form, the city council has the legislative authority while the city manager has the executive authority. And in the mayor council, the city council has legislative and the mayor has the executive. So basically you displace the city manager only. This does not mean that the city manager has to be terminated. Most cities just, when they change the title to city administrator. Some don't. As a matter of fact, Fort Smith still calls their city manager. But anyway, in the city manager form, the city manager and the attorney are hired by the board and report only to the board. And in the city council, the mayor, the city attorney, the city clerk, and the city treasurer are all elected by and report to the citizens. And all of you already know, there's 6 directors on the city board, city manager type government with the mayor elected at large. And I think it's Mr. Remick that said that, anyway, whoever it was, accurate, that their primary job is just figurehead. In the mayor-council form, the city council is actually 12 members representing 12 districts. The mayor is still elected at large. Now, here's the primary problem that I have. This came directly off the website, nobackwards.com. Says, who is behind the proposed change? Well, they're apparently describing, I suppose, Mr. Clay Herrmann here, but I don't know that they know what his real purpose was. The other two are the real ones that give me heartburn. And if the city reverts back, and you've heard it, I think all of the people that spoke tonight were not guilty of this. I think 99% of everything they said was pretty accurate. So I think we need to applaud these folks for their position and what they actually said. But some of these people doing the advertising are not being quite correct. Because they say we're going from professional, ethical, transparent, and responsive government to an administration of paid amateurs. That's not exactly the case. And why is the city manager better for me? The city's enjoyed a period of unprecedented growth. How many of you buy that? We'll talk about that a little bit. I purposely and personally say this is misinformation. You'll know we got a lot of criticism at the Good Government Group when we said, oh, you know, those figures saying there's 37,000 plus that came to the St. Patty's Day parade, we actually said, oh, you know, people deserve to know what the facts are, and we go out and we check. We actually have a half dozen people working and counting 7,000 people. There's a little disparity there, is there not? But let's go back to the city manager versus mayoral council form. You've heard that it's going to cost us a lot of money if we convert over. And I asked Brian Albright directly, I said, can we pay those city directors and the mayor $1, or must we pay them $100,000? He said, yeah, you can pay them $1, whatever you please, just as long as they're paid something. And we should be paying our directors something right now, just so they can pay for their gas to get to meetings. And this last one I heard on an advertisement on the radio just today, it's going to cost us the better part of $500,000 if you convert. That's a scare tactic. That is misinformation. The fact of the matter is, you can pay them whatever you please to pay them. Now, here's a few of the other things that gave me heartburn just a little bit. First of all, Little Rock does pay their mayor $100,000. They pay their city manager $160,000. But that's their choice. It's up to the people. So the mayor and the alderman will not necessarily make $100,000. The city manager must be fired. That is not correct. You can still call him that if you want to. He can still run the business of the city. Most cities, like I say, call him a city administrator. And we'll have a mayor that knows nothing. Well, Clay kind of touched on that. Surely you will elect a businessman or somebody that knows what they're doing to that position. But it's not real important, but if you keep that city manager, because you still keep that expertise. And some people have said on the other side, well, this is going to solve the ETJ problem. No, it won't solve the ETJ problem. You're just going to have 13 people vote to interfere in the city or in the county, or you're going to have 7 people vote to do it. It will stop the city's progress and prosperity. We'll address that in just a little bit, and stop the city's growth. I think you would agree with me that mostly is misinformation. Okay, but let's talk about what has not been addressed. Instead of that misinformation, let's talk about factual things. Which form is more accountable? Which form of government? Which form is more representative? Which form is less apt to be corrupt? We've touched on some of those things already. Which form has the best track record in Arkansas, because we have both forms? Who's funding the campaigns and why? Let's address the first one. Which forms are more accountable? Well, again, we already mentioned this. The manager reports to the board. In the other case, the manager would report to the mayor. Could still be the manager. The attorney, instead of reporting to the board, does it to the citizens. The same thing with the clerk. Instead of these people reporting to the city manager, both the clerk and the treasurer report to the citizens because they become elected positions. Now, there's a couple little asterisks coming in right there now. And that's the difference in the accountability. Reporting to the board or reporting to the public. The same thing with respect to the attorney. And also with the clerk and the treasurer. So which is more accountable to the public? Direct reporting or through a manager and or a board? So let's talk a little about which form is more representative. Again, the mayor represents all the city's citizens in either form. But the directors, now instead of representing approximately 6,000 people in each district, 6 districts times 6,000 would make our city about 36,000, which is roughly what it is. The alderman now would represent half as many, or about 3,000. Would he be more responsive to 3,000 than to 6? And in the mayor council, of course, the mayor has veto power that they do not currently have. And in the city manager, four votes overrule certain city commissions. Have any of you seen almost every meeting where somebody is appealing and asking the city directors to overturn some commission? And quite often they do. Now, it would be a little harder to do if you went with the automatic form, good or bad. And the mayor has veto power. So again, here's another thing that hasn't been addressed. Which form has the best track record? Let's look at them. This has been touched on. There's only 4 cities in the state of Arkansas that have the city manager form that are Class A cities. The mayor council have over 90, including a couple of hybrids. 3 of the 4 of the city manager forms of government have actually lost population. Hot Springs, Arkadelphia, and Hope have all lost population. On the mayor council, all but 2 have gained population. And those 2 are Pine Bluff and West Memphis. So why is the city manager better for me? This is something, again, that came directly off the website that gave me heartburn. The city's enjoyed a period of unprecedented growth. We lost 1.4% since 2000 to 2011. That's not growth. That's going backwards. And they've developed strategic plans where they've supported economic development. They've maintained infrastructure and implementing sound fiscal policy. We're in debt. We can't afford to pay obligations that we have, such as tearing down the old St. George Hospital. And again, here's an asterisk that falls in there. Why is that fourth city under the city manager form not lost population? That's Texarkana. Any of you been in Texarkana lately? You know, we lived there not too long ago. Most of the nice residential subdivisions are in Arkansas. They're prettier subdivisions, there's nicer terrain. But you know what Texarkana has that no other city in Arkansas has? Exemption from state income tax. How many of those people do you think in Texarkana, Arkansas live on the Arkansas side and work on the Texas side? Could that have something to do with it? Did I skip over one I shouldn't have or not? Oh, yeah, the progress and prosperity. I think that probably goes without saying, the infrastructure and planning. Dig up your own facts. They're out there, they're pretty easy. And which form is less apt to be corrupt? Right now, special interests need 4 votes. Mayor council special interest needs 7 votes. Campaign costs would be about half because you don't have to put up but half as many signs in your district. The power of a director is diminished considerably. Instead of 1/7, you're 1/13. And the one thing that's been touched on that also gives me a little bit of heartburn is the fact that one director talked everyone else into curtailing the citizens' right to speak at city board members, at city board meetings. If you got a strong mayor, that mayor can come in and say whether or not you get to speak, or if you don't get to speak, and then the city commissioners can overrule them, or aldermen in this case. Here's the chart about populations, and by the way, I have all the cities, all the Class A cities. There's actually exactly 100 Class A cities. There's 503 incorporated cities and towns. But as you can see, I don't know if you can or not, but right here is Hot Springs, 1.4%. And this is the central Arkansas cities. We lost 1.4% in population, people, of the central Arkansas cities. Without Hot Springs, central Arkansas cities would have grown 36%. With Hot Springs, they grew 32%. Here's the same thing for southwest Arkansas. And as you can see, Arkadelphia and Hope both lost population. City manager type forms of government. Didn't make up these numbers. Draw your own conclusions. It's amazing over here what northeast Arkansas cities are doing. I was surprised to see Jonesboro growing that fast, 21% in 11 years, not bad. And in northwest Arkansas cities, it's just amazing. 34% increase in population up there. So who's funding the campaigns and why? I think that's a question we need to ask. I'm not going to touch it. So what's Hot Springs' record under either form? What have we accomplished? Well, we turned down Dollywood a long time ago, didn't we? Google Dollywood and Hot Springs, and you'll see the area that was picked. It's still on the internet, believe it or not. It pops right up and shows you it's out on East Grand. Bass Pro Shops, Mr. Ramick, I think if you'd been on the board and the current board members, you probably wouldn't have turned that one down. Because that was a winner. Those folks went to Bossier City, and now they're getting ready to build in Little Rock. Why did we turn down the Bass Hall of Fame, the Pro Bass Hall of Fame? They just recently finally found a location they're gonna locate now in Coleman, Alabama. Do you know the problems that Logan's Roadhouse had in trying to locate here? The fellow that was here finally threw up his hand and said, it's not worth the red tape to try to locate in this town. So they would go over to Bryant, Conway, Fort Smith, Belton, Rogers. Fantastic restaurants. It's been nice to have had one here. I'm not sure which type of government, well, I guess I am too. But they've given us the downtown bottleneck. They gave us a new multi-million-dollar parking deck and then closed the street that went to it. That's planning. They voted to build a new city hall. And if we hadn't done a petition drive, we would be paying for it today, folks. So the record of Hot Springs is not just really great under either form. How about travel abuse? Well, we used to send our directors and others to Las Vegas. Within 2 years, we went to all of these places, including New Orleans, several trips to Washington, D.C., Orlando, Reno, and let's not forget their favorite spot to go to. Multiple directors at one time went to Hanamaki, Japan, before they changed the travel policy. Does that not irritate some of you just a little bit?
Amen.
Okay. So, what is the big difference? Which is most important? The form of the city government or the people in the positions in city government? I personally think the latter. Either form of city government is going to shaft us if you let them, if we have apathy. Do you have any questions of me, or do you disagree that any of these are factual?
That's excellent.
Okay. Yes.
Not a Logan's Roadhouse is going in Fairgrounds Crossing?
That's what?
Is that not a Logan's Roadhouse going in Fairgrounds Crossing now?
That's Texas Roadhouse or Longhorn Steakhouse or something. It's not Logan's, but it is a welcome addition. It's a great restaurant. Logan's is also a good one.
I was always for business road, I tell you that.
Absolutely. I think most of our current board are for business growth, but we don't have a good record, folks. Any questions about any of those things being accurate whatsoever?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you. If you'd like, any of you guys want to come back up and take any further questions? We've got 15, 20 minutes. Glenn, you want to take over again?
First of all, before we take any questions, I do want to restate for the record, and you finished off exactly right. Doesn't matter what form of government we have, it's the people we elect. And until we fix that one thing, as far as I'm concerned, this is Glenn Gallis personally speaking, it doesn't matter. We've got to change the way and how and who we elect. Which, brings me to the point when it comes to what, the strong mayor. The one thing that just gripes all over me is when they say, we can't have a good mayor. Folks, our nation history tells us we've elected presidents and congressmen and senators all this way. Some good, some bad, but our nation's history was built off of the popular vote and a representative form of government. And we should never, ever, regardless of which side of the fence we stand, disparage that form of government or the way that we elect. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people requires one thing, and that's the people, and that's you and I. So,
Well, Glenn, you say that elected by the popular vote. The President of the United States is not elected by the popular vote. The President of the United States is elected by the Electoral College, which is a group of people that have been selected to cast their votes for their states.
So I'd like to see us go back to the popular vote.
We can debate that in a future.
Yeah.
We can debate that in a future, but any questions about the city form of government?
Yes, I'm.
Good to see you, man. How you doing?
Been vacation for a while. I want to make a comment, then I'd like to ask a question to all the panelists sitting up there. I have a comment on it. I've lived here all my life, 64 years. I've been under both forms of government. Right. Now, my problem, and I think some people already said that it's going to take people with courage. My biggest problem, and I've said it for years, that we need to start putting hot springs number one. If you're going to put hot springs number one, you need to have people that are in executive positions, like the department heads, especially the chief and chief of police and the fire chief, to live in this community.
Yes.
It takes courage from directors. It takes courage from aldermen to say, if you want this job, you got to live in this town, be a part of this community. We haven't had that. So I'm with whoever said that you got to have courageous people, whether you got city manager, form of government, or whether you got your alderman. Either way. But I do think back when we had aldermen, I lived under that too, the aldermen were out there working. They were getting paid, but they were still out there working. I don't think I've seen myself the same thing out of directors, because most time I don't think they read the package. So when they go to board meetings, they sit there in front of the camera, they don't want to embarrass themselves and just go along with it. But my question to the panelists is, why isn't the either form of government can have the courage to demand Hot Springs comes first, just like the University of Arkansas. You don't work for them and don't stay up there. You don't wear other people's logos in school either. Why can't we demand more loyalty and dedication out of department heads? I think the employees will follow.
I'll let you respond to that.
And have a raise.
I did, and there was no support for it
Right,
because
right.
I think you remember.
Sure did.
Yeah.
No courage.
No, they didn't. They really didn't, because the people that were supporting them apparently didn't want that. And that's where your responsive form of government comes in. You have to be responsive to the people. And if you want to work for a city, you should have your interest in that city. If you live in Benton or another city and you work for a department, where's your heart? Where's your interest? It's where you live. So thank you for that comment.
And sir, I do agree with you. You know, again, if a city director, you have to live in your district to do that. And I can tell you, we had a vote one night that someone was requesting another vehicle, another car. I don't know if you remember this. And I said, just a second. You mean we have an employee that doesn't have a city car? You know, and I got the accountability on every piece of equipment that we had, and I think that we had too many vehicles. We were paying for too many vehicles, and that was a major cost for us. Now, at that point, I couldn't get, again, Peggy couldn't always get buy-in, and I couldn't always get buy-in because of the 7 votes. So, but again, I still feel that our best form of government for this city is the city manager. And when they're talking about progress, Bob, I don't know if they're talking about population growth or progress, but again, I go back to Oaklawn Park, and I remember the first check we got was about $19,000 on our proceeds from the games of skill, and I don't know what it is now, but it's got to be over $100,000 a month, I would think. So that's really good. There was one other thing that I had. I'm getting old, so.
Well, then forget.
Sir, I worked for the city of Hot Springs some years ago as a firefighter, and I did not live in the city limits. Your suggestion that ought to be a requirement, I don't disagree with. I do not disagree with that would be a good city policy. I think if that had been the city policy, I might have looked pretty hard to try to find myself an address in the city limits.
You missed part of the question. Department heads, not the employee, department heads.
Okay, and
Like
I take it that you know of some circumstances where department heads currently do not live in the city
Oh,
limits.
yeah, oh, my God, yeah, none of them, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, if they're not gonna move to the city, throw them out, fire them. I agree with that.
Oh, that takes courage. From a board of directors, an alderman. even-
Well, actually, if you go back to the other form of government, it only takes one person under the mayor alderman form of government, and that's the mayor. You elect a mayor, if that mayor has the will to dismiss department heads that won't comply with those kind of policies, the mayor can fire and hire all the department heads. Just like the president can when he takes office, or the governor can when he takes office at the state level, the same thing in the city. And
His cabinet.
oh, rats, I think I had a really excellent point now. I lost it. I am, and by the way,
It's just realtors.
oh, the lights are on now. Hey, buddy, back there, slow down on that light change.
I'd like to ask a question. Few,
Okay.
that's
Of me?
fine with me.
Okay.
For everybody. You keep talking, about population growth and how it's not moved forward or it's fallen off or whatever.
That's actually my point, thank you. Thank
Are
you.
you gonna finish yours or am I gonna finish mine?
Well, if you don't
Maybe
go,
if what I say might entice you to.
okay, you try to be quick, and then I'll try to be not so quick, but anyway, go ahead.
What are we talking about? Population growth. Now, does that encompass people that don't have skin in the game, come and rent out some ramshackle house down that's marginally habitable?
Census Bureau records, whoever gets counted in the
So what
census.
good is it unless, if these people, if you have population growth, filling up space in town with people that don't have skin in the game, and they're just here because it's cheap or whatever, and they're living on welfare or whatever their circumstances, they're not paying anything except when they go down to buy a hamburger at McDonald's or that sort of thing, sales tax. They have no property tax. They're running around uninsured vehicles, all that stuff. And this is what gets me. What good is the figure of population growth? We need to, I think population growth is a smokescreen for something. I don't know what it is. What about people that actually are living and paying taxes on the property and contributing something to where they are living? That's what I got. That's why I was talking about vision and skin in the game and what this city is lacking.
Well, early in America, you know that only property owners were allowed to vote. Maybe that would be a great policy still, but it's not going to happen.
Couple that with low voter turnout anyways. Only a few people go out. Everybody's complaining about what a disappointment low voter turnout is. Well, you know what? Half of these people that don't have skin in the game aren't going to vote anyways, because what do they got to lose? What do they care? They're just here because it suits their fancy for the moment.
The growth of hot springs, which you touched on pretty hard, one area where I can agree with the city, where you look at the overall population as census count, it went down. But one area that has grown, and the figures I think I remember looking at, if somebody else has the correct figures, if I'm telling you wrong, when we had the form of government change in 1986, 87, the population of city employees, about 170 in 1987, and then today, more than 300% increase, over 600 city employees, Talk about an exploding bureaucracy of government. That's something that the city manager form of government has done for us. Thank you.
Let me just add something, because I do have some numbers. That's okay. Let's talk about numbers of people with skin in the game. Number one, about 7% of our housing stock is vacant. Okay, it's vacant because people have moved out and those properties have declined in value, and the fact that we have low and negative employment growth. Now, we have lost, you know, when they talk about prosperous hot springs, I count prosperous hot springs only by one value, and that is, do I make more money today than I did yesterday? And the truth of the matter is, per capita, the citizens of Hot Springs have lost $3,000 per year in income, the average citizen. 27% of the people that are in Hot Springs today live below the poverty level. That means they're typically rental. That means they're typically a family of four. I mean, I can give you all kinds of statistics. Those are the people that don't have skin in the game. We will never change that in Hot Springs until we have industry. We will never have industry, per se, in Hot Springs. Hot Springs is primarily retirement, primarily healthcare, and primarily tourist attraction. We are what we are. The best thing to make Arkansas prosper is to do what we do very well. That is my heartburn, and that is the thing that we have to work on. We will never change skin in the game until we begin the process of making Hot Springs better at what we do well, not trying to build another industry or another link or another 4-lane highway, all those things that simply waste resources that we could spend on, you know, the Dollywood, I remember the first planning group when it was gonna make that, you know, with Ted Mullinex and the entertainment district, you know, all that stuff went by the wayside, and it was all politically based. And so, those are the things that we have to change. We'll never change skin in the game until we raise the prosperous level in Hot Springs. We'll never raise the prosperity level in Hot Springs until we do what Arkansas does best and do more of it.
You can change skin in the game, and you can do it. I'm not, you know.
Well, like I said, until you change those dynamics.
No, you have to, you can't, what you do is you make it not so easy and so attractive for those that don't have skin in the game, never plan to have skin in the game, to come here and settle down. You know, in other words, you gotta do something about these. I don't know. I'm just talking as what I've seen in 7 years I've been here. It hits me square in the face every day.
I can address that.
You got people what do they call it? Vacant landlords. What am I looking for? Out of state landlords, people that don't live in town. They set it up with a retail rental agent maybe, or they just rent out to anybody because absentee landlord. All they care about is making that mortgage or paying off that house until the day they die. They don't care who rents it or what goes on there. The police can't address what's going on there. Animal control cannot do anything. And all the people do is steal the resources from this city that we are so dire need of.
Rick and then Peggy.
With no skin in the game.
I run a business here in Hot Springs. We do about $80 million a year in real estate sales. When you're talking about absentee landlords, we have a lot of people have second homes here. When they have a second home here, number one, they're paying their real estate taxes, county again, but when they buy furniture, they're going to Hanks, Arkansas Furniture. When they have a plumbing problem, they're calling Mr. Gallows here. They're going to the restaurants and eating, but they're only here for Saturday and Sunday. The rest of the time they're in Memphis, they're in Louisiana. So what has stifled our economy and our real estate sales here in Pine Bluff, I'm stuck in my mind, here in Hot Springs, is we sell a lot of lake condominiums, a lot of them. But the Dodd-Frank Act has changed all that, has changed banking. You can't finance a condominium in the secondary market. So that's limited a lot of people, which has limited an influx of buyers into Hot Springs. So you're talking about skin in the game. These people that live in Dallas, St. Louis, Little Rock, Pine Bluff, they have skin in the game in this town because they have property here. We manage 116 condominium units and now 82 houses.
But they do have
We
skin.
screen everyone.
I'm saying, yeah, but they have skin in the game.
Right.
They have the money, they put up 100, I'm talking about people that have these rundown, crappy houses that they're renting out at they're worth $30,000, $40,000, and won't ever move on the market, and they're rented out to people that don't have skin in the game.
Do you know
I
a
don't know where
city
they come from. I have
anywhere?
no idea where they come from.
Well-
I don't care what race they are. I don't care that they're.
What is your
they're-
point,
they're-
sir? I mean, you know,
The point is
this is-
you have a lot of people in this city that are taxing the resources of the city that don't have skin in the game and therefore don't give a hoot about anything.
Oh,
They
okay,
will
I
never come out-
understand.
They will never come out and vote. They don't care who's running the government. They will not come down and, they don't.
So is this why we should change our form of government? Will that help?
No, I'm saying.
I thought that's what we were here to talk
My idea
about.
about whatever does happen at the end of this, it's still, who's ever running the city has got to get some vision about how to run the city correctly and get off of this old road trip that they've been on, because it isn't working.
I think
And I'm
you
talking
should.
about
Yeah.
tourism.
Okay,
Your
back-
tourism thing is out the window. It's gone.
No, it's not.
Oh, come on now. There aren't people
Okay.
coming from miles around that come here except for a weekend or so.
Your time is up,
You
sir.
can't support.
Your time is up.
You can't support.
Okay,
something like
it is
that.
in response to your concern about these people with these homes that rent them out and they live in another place.
Some of
It-
them, some of them live in town, most of them live
Correct.
right here in town.
What you're addressing is what they call non-owner occupied residences. And it's a fact that as a community or a neighborhood realizes more and more rental, the crime rate goes up because people don't have a vested interest. You call it skin in the game. I've never heard it before. Okay, they don't have a vested interest except for collecting the check. And the people that sent this very expensive brochure and information out that paid for it, I'd like somebody to look up, even though it'll be after Tuesday, how many of these people have a vested interest in Hot Springs except for maybe they sell real estate or they're in the banking industry? That's one thing. But the people that remain in the city of Hot Springs perhaps don't have those options to exercise. They can't afford to move to the community, to the county, or they can't afford to move to a gated subdivision or a protected area. We have a very, very, very high crime rate. And you cannot hide that. They try. They don't try, I shouldn't say that. They play it down. They play it down. And I know that from being on the board for many, many years. There's a lot of things that, you can't put everything in the newspaper, and some things are, pretty scary. But we are losing owner-occupied structures. And as that happens, we are losing populations. So why are the people that are funding this form of government, why are they so interested? Since we've lost 1.4% and the county has gained 9.1% in the 2010 census. What is this all about? They see this, you see this as a win-win. And I don't understand it at all. And what were you saying, Rick, about people going to the penitentiary? What was that comment?
Oh, yeah, that was from the, strong mayor form of government.
Well,
Oh, it's caught two crooks in Pine Bluff and they had to pay the dues.
yeah, well,
They got caught, that was the
we
only
have
time, they got
people,
caught.
we have people here that have gone to the penitentiary too, and driven people to the penitentiary, whatever. But the point is, we are losing people in the city of Hot Springs. We need to reverse that and do whatever we can to reverse that trend. That's all I care about. That was my agenda. Yes?
I've lived here since I was 7 years old. And the hot springs that I knew, you could go anywhere and you weren't afraid of being shot or killed. There was a wonderful middle class. They didn't live in luxurious homes, but they had nice homes on Patterson, Main Street. I mean, Hot Springs was a wonderful city. What I've seen happen in the last 40 or 50 years is horrible. Look at Albert Pike. It looks like some Detroit boarded up city. And where is our plan for the future there? The regulation, people don't want to come here because there are so many regulations, so many taxes. We do nothing to help small businesses here.
I know several people that were going to retire, several meaning more than 3, that they looked at the tax structure and they could not afford on their fixed incomes to move to the city of Hot Springs. I was shocked because I'm not a numbers person, that's for sure. But our taxes are very, very, very high.
And the same people who've been pulling the strings all along are still pulling the strings, and no matter what form of government is going to be here.
That's right, but you can remove them. You
I
can
don't know
remove.
how.
Well, if you have a mayor that is elected, you can also, after their term is over in 4 years, vote them out because they do have the veto power. And I'll guarantee you that they will listen to the constituents because if they want that job, and for whatever reason they do want that job. And I'm not implying kickbacks or anything like that. But there are people that actually do like to help people. And I know a lot of them, some of them aren't living anymore, but they really did like to help people. And they're still around. And if we do change a form of government, I'll guarantee you, the Chamber of Commerce will do just great. 50 for the Future will be here. All of the different organizations that help people and help this community, they're not leaving. And the people that volunteer and have done wonderful things with the Greenway, they're not going away. The city employees that are doing a good job, they're going to be retained. And the people that you like that happen to be in this form of government, you have to keep in mind, you're not voting for these people. These people are going to either retire, move away because of another opportunity. They might pass away. There's a lot of things that happen with people. So you have to put all the people that you like aside. They're not here forever. And think about what is the most direct way of controlling what is happening to your city. If your city is, losing population and not doing well, do you continue the progress? No. And I am a progressive, by the way. I even have an umbrella that shows it.
Lloyd, you get the dubious distinction of having the last question.
I've lived here practically all my life too, and I find it rather interesting to just look at a good many of the people who are writing the letters in advocating for keeping the present form of government. And I remember some of those were actually heads of past government, and I had tried to go to some of the city council meetings for a while, and they were so rude to the average citizen that they almost killed any participation. And so now it sure is strange to me. I'm seeing these people who are the bad guys, so to speak, writing in, and standing up and saying, hey, this is what we need. To me, they lost their credibility. I don't care anything about hearing from these folks, But anyway, the other thing I hear the side advocating for city managers saying, well, we don't want to just let just any old dummy up there, to manage a budget of $97 million, it's almost like they're proud of it. That's one of the things wrong with the nation right now. The budget's way out of control, and I think it's really something right here on the local level. How did it get up to $97 million anyway? I think that needs to be looked into, really, and whether it be whatever form of government it is.
Anybody want to address the budget?
Yes, I don't have a question, but I just like to
We
hear a comment.
overextended our city services, and Rick can attest to this. In the 70s, the feds came in and they shut us down because we didn't have enough to service the area. And I do stand corrected about the CAO, the Consent Administrative Order. It was for stormwater. Thank you, Rick. I was thinking water, H2O. But yeah, the city did that under, while Kent Myers was city manager. And I voted against all the water and sewer extensions so far outside of the city. We overburdened the system. And then, when the federal government came in, we had to build to make up for where we extended, and so our rates and our fees were raised, and we didn't get to vote on that. Now, under the other form of government, if they raise our rates and our fees, we can, they have to be responsive to what they do. We can just vote them out. We cannot do that under this form of government, not with the city manager being the CEO. And I do like David Watkins. This is not about David Watkins. He's not here forever. Who's going to be here after he's not city manager? And that's my concern, is looking to the future. And just because you're saying this is going backwards, it doesn't mean that's true at all. That's their logo, and that's what they're putting out. And it's clever, but it's not true at all. Like I said, is the rest of Arkansas just dumb? I don't think so. Reflecting a loss of population and owner-occupied population reflects failure. Thank you.
We're going to have one final comment because Rick rightly made the point a while ago. He's speaking for three over here. So we'll give him the final word. Rick.
Thanks, Bob. One of the cities, I don't want to say our, one of the city's greatest budget items is the retirement plan. Now, pre-city manager government, it was decided on the retirement plan that we are paying for dearly. How much, Peggy, is it? I mean, it's just astronomical what the city has to pay into the retirement plan each year. We use state actuaries to figure this out, and we never know what the formula is going to be. We just pay it, and just pay it, and just pay it. And that is what is hurting us now, and I don't think we'll ever get out of this.
He's referring to the firefighters fund.
Right, yes, yeah. And I don't want to take anyone's retirement away from them, but, you know, man, there's a limit to this. So, you know, that's where part of it is. And our taxes, ma'am, most of our tax increases have been in the county. We had a 20% real estate increase, 5% a year for 4 years, and that was county. It wasn't necessarily city, and something that the city government did. And Clay, I want to ask you a question. How many buyers in the real estate business have asked you in moving to Hot Springs, what type of government do you have? Is it city manager or strong mayor?
I don't recall ever having been asked that question.
So I don't think that people moving into Hot Springs care about what form of
I
government
think
we
it's
have.
once people move here, and then they see what.
Find out later.
Then they care.
Of course. How else can it be?
Okay, we owe a debt of thanks to, as a matter of fact, didn't Rick do a good job not even knowing that he was going to be up here? I think he did, great job. We owe our other panelists thanks. We also owe Mr. Chris Reimers in the back on the lights a debt of thanks. And especially Mr. Glenn Gallus back here. Thank you so much, Glenn. We appreciate you. Good evening, we're adjourned.
You know what,